Welcome, and thank you for attending Leveraging the Cloud, or as I like to call it, How to Succeed at Rendering Without Buying the Farm. So my name is Jenny O'Connor. That is not a picture of me on the left, but it is a close approximation. A little bit about me. I am a senior user experience designer for the 3ds Max team. And I'm in charge of rendering and also design data interop. And one of my responsibilities is to talk with the customer, talk with you, find out what your pain points are, and help to bring new tools, new features into Max that help make your working lives easier. My background's computer science engineering. Before joining Autodesk, I was a college professor. I taught 3ds Max, design visualization, Revit, Inventor, Fusion 360, AutoCAD, going back too many years. On the right is a picture of my book, Mastering Mental Ray. And as you might imagine, I am a fan of rendering. A lot of that book focused on how to optimize lighting, materials, render settings to get high quality as fast as you could. And that'll become important in the conversation later. For many years, I was a freelance artist with my son, Ryan. We had a brick and mortar studio at one point, and a few years back, one of our biggest clients absorbed our company and created a new company called Blue Marble 3D, and Ryan is still there today. So I have a lot of practical user experience with Max, and in this talk today, I want to talk about the things that we've worked on over the years, and how those problems can be solved today. So, you're at SIGGRAPH, so I assume you know what cloud is. Clouds are racks and racks of computers, usually at a remote location, accessible via the internet. If it's a local cloud, then it's probably through an intranet. There are public clouds such as Amazon, Google Cloud, Windows, Azure. And then there's hybrid clouds, which might include processing and data that's handled locally and then also remotely. There's Autodesk A360 cloud services, which provide a variety of connections and a variety of services from hybrid to full cloud to software that extends your desktop application. There's a few acronyms that you should know. There's software as a service, and that may be something like Salesforce, where you connect to computers and software and data that's hosted remotely. There's infrastructure as a service, so bare metal computers that you can set up and run yourself in the cloud. There's platform as a service, which provides a higher level of service. So if you need updates and help with managing cloud, that's a good way to go. There's also services that add a letter to the beginning of as a service, and rendering as a service is one of the things that I work with. So you'll hear that term RAS. So a few interesting statistics that I found when I was working on this presentation. Greater than 90% of enterprise companies use cloud, public cloud, in some ways. I didn't think it would be that much. It's quite a bit. And that could be software as a service. It could be email, computation. Could be data backup, storage, communication, synchronization of some sort. Cloud is certainly growing quite a bit, so I've got a couple statistics up there. Amazon reported that EC2 usage up from 2013 to 14, up 93%. And Amazon is larger than the next 14 companies combined. Our own A360, which just launched a few years ago, has over 60,000 users, and that's as of December, so it's certainly up even more. Our A360 rendering service back in April produced its 20 millionth render, and 10 million of those renders happened in just the previous 8 months, so it's accelerating. Autodesk is a prime example of a company that has embraced the cloud. We use it for purchasing, travel and expense, customer success. Code collaboration is a newer one for us, be able to share code amongst the different divisions, do a better job with that. Human resources, high performance computing is big. We also use other applications for backup, sharing, synchronization, between systems. So we produce as well as consume cloud services. So I talked a little bit about my experience at the start, and what I've figured out over the years is that life without cloud isn't all sunshine. So as a business owner, there was a lot of instances that cloud could have solved problems for me, but services didn't exist. So I want to talk about those pain points, and I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of people here at SIGGRAPH, and cloud keeps coming up. So I want to cover those pain points and talk about how we can solve those things today. So let's take a look at what leveraging the cloud means to me. It means instant, massive, right-sized compute power as I need it. So elastic compute capability is the #1 reason people talk about needing the cloud. So when it comes to rendering, clients don't really care why it takes so long to generate an image. All they know is they have a deadline and they need something now. In the business that we had, it was a lot of iterative design development. So quick changes and turnaround was very common. So handling the ebb and flow of rendering was often difficult for a small studio. And if you've tried to render, you've got every machine possible rendering. You've got put little Post-it notes up. Don't touch those computers, and you have the competing needs of having your artists creating new content for future renders, and the need to get jobs out the door. And sometimes you just couldn't do that. So several years ago, they added rendering as a service to Revit. And our typical workflow is to build things in Revit, bring that into Max, and then render it out in Iray. And when A360 rendering became available in Revit, it really was a game changer for us. We were able to make changes that the client wanted as far as the building, structure, and some elements that weren't required in Max, and render out images very quickly and get them things without tying up our render farm. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm also happy to announce that we now have A360 rendering available in 3ds Max 2016. And I'll show that in a little bit. So leveraging the cloud means being able to better manage expenses. It means being able to expense compute power instead of having to capitalize it. So opportunity cost is something that any business owner needs to consider. And if you want to be able to accept more opportunities, you often had to think about whether you could handle those, in my case, the rendering requirements of that. So there was a definite cost related to opportunities. Buyer's remorse. So we've all bought that awesome computer, and in 3 or 4 years, it suddenly became too slow and too expensive to operate, and then you push it off to the side. So I've recycled a lot of computers over the years. With cloud, there's no need to worry about buying that hardware. You can choose your level of service, your level of speed. You've got instant access to it, and when you don't need it, you don't use it. For us, it was also, there was a bit of a change in the way cloud works. So it used to be billable in hour increments, and if you rendered something, you often were paying for a lot of time that you didn't utilize. So many of these now have 1-minute increments. And it's also very quick to set up instances. So if there's SSD drives involved, you can very quickly spin up an instance, get it working on the cloud. And for very computation-intensive things like rendering, it's often worth the effort to set up and run. So leveraging the cloud means faster, cheaper, more economical over time. It means being able to leverage the massive buying power of a company like Amazon or Google or Microsoft. They're certainly not paying the same thing we are for computers. And they have a great incentive to keep up with Moore's Law. So over time, things become more economical to run. So they reduce energy costs, things become faster, and it's a greater incentive to then use the cloud. They also can take advantage of industrial electrical rates. So they're not paying for cooling or equipment operation the same way that you or I are. So that often doubled my expense when I was rendering in the summer. So something to consider. Being green is certainly important to everyone nowadays. Lower carbon emissions, I think is a great way to go. So Amazon, currently at 25% renewable, heading to 40% by next year. Google, 35%. All are heading towards 100%. Combining that with the efficiencies of newer hardware, that means lower costs can be passed on to you. When power is generated where you use it, you don't have loss in the lines leading from the power generation to where it's used. So that's an even greater efficiency. So back to my studio. Buying computers was certainly desirable. You know, you had great compatibility between the components. You had warranties, quick turnaround on service. But with our iRay rendering, oftentimes we needed to put together systems that could take 3 or 4 large GPUs, had large power supplies, efficient cooling to be able to burn out these images. We had the expertise to do that, but it wasn't the business that we needed to be in. So, you know, we could save some money, but we needed to be spending time creating content and burning out images rather than working on computers. Computer downtime. With the cloud, just use a different computer. I'm not sure what it is about 2 in the morning, but you're pushing to get a deadline. Something always happens at 2 a.m. The network goes down, something happens, files get corrupted. You certainly don't have to worry about that with cloud. That is my actual cat and my actual computer in the middle of the night trying to get it working again. So, you know, if you've got your own computers, you need spare parts, you need expertise, you need tools, you need a CAT scanner, you need, you know, the ability to troubleshoot. Not everybody has that. And if you had enough parts to repair your computer, you'd probably just build another one anyways and be in the same position later. So no need to build, maintain, troubleshoot, repair, or questionable CAT labor. Communication is certainly critical to a business's success. We worked with clients and artists around the world. We were better able to leverage new services that we couldn't provide ourselves, whether it's an artist being able to sculpt or what have you. And collaboration tools helped us get stuff done together. There's a couple good examples of collaboration tools that are available from Autodesk. One is Fusion 360. I'll mention that a few times because it's a great example of an application at Autodesk that's very quickly evolving. You see new services and things showing up in Fusion 360. And it was built from the start for collaboration on the cloud. So you've got a single data set in there. You can invite people to your projects. Anybody around the world can view the project and work on the project together. We have a new service called Revit. It's A360 Collaboration Suite for Revit. I almost said it wrong. So now your data set's on the cloud. Anywhere around the world, people can work on that same data set. And as you know, in our former architecture business, we often worked with a lot of different companies that provided structural or environmental services. And keeping all those models together was often difficult. So now we have some new things. So there's no demo on this, but they're just examples of ways that Autodesk is moving to improve collaboration, to make it easier for you to work with people anywhere, anytime. So this is most of what Autodesk does on the cloud. We've got a few other examples we'll show. Some are completely web-based, like the 123D apps. Some are hybrid, like Fusion, where there's a kind of a thick client now with data storage in the cloud, rendering local. Some are services that extend the capabilities of your desktop, and it might include simulation or rendering. Cloud's ideal for advanced application, things that are computation intensive. And you'll often find those kinds of applications in the newest applications, the newest examples of those from Autodesk in our A360 applications first. So for us, some of the advantages of providing things on the cloud allows us to try new business models very quickly. We can do things without lower risk for us, lower risks for the user. We can spin up projects very quickly and try things. Apps can evolve and provide new features seamlessly to the user. And Fusion 360 is a great example of that. Every 6 or 8 weeks, there's a new version of that, so there's always something new in there for you to find and explore. And rendering in Fusion 360 is a great place to find kind of the latest from Autodesk. We can add new users very quickly without adding infrastructure. It ends up being fast for all. So an application that is completely cloud-based, where it's doing all that processing in the cloud, whether it's manipulating a model or whatever. I worked with a lot of students over the years, little underpowered laptops at home. Now, as long as they've got a good internet connection, they can have a great experience with our software. So let's take a look at a couple examples. So this one's called the Molecule Viewer. Let me start this. And it's not really a demo, it's just something to kind of watch there. But I'm particularly fascinated with this one because you can choose different molecules to view and it changes. It's very complex data, but it's a very smooth viewing experience. It's using something called the A360 Viewer. And in this case, you can get right down to atoms, see things in different ways. It's able to handle very large models, very complex models, very quickly for the user. But it's an example of a way that Autodesk is not only leveraging the cloud, but also building components that can be used in a variety of ways. So you'll see these kinds of things in new applications. This is another good example. It's called Autodesk Memento. It was Project Memento recently, but it's graduated. It allows you to take high-resolution photographs or 3D scans, turn that into a high-resolution 3D model. And when we did a lot of design development, we often had clients that had some special needs. So it was a funky chair or interesting sculpture that they needed in their models, or in their rendering, so we would try to model that as best we could. Once Recap Photo became available, and now Project Memento, you could just take pictures of that, send it up to the cloud, get your 3D model, and be rendering. So it's a very simple user interface. You'll often find with things that are simple to use, they're often harder for the computer to produce the output. This is an excellent example of that. Cloud for Project Memento allows you to do massive data sets. So not everybody has 128 gigabytes in their computer. If you've ever tried to work with scan data, you really need a lot of memory to do that. Cloud makes that easy. And that's why these kinds of applications are cloud-based. You'd also probably find that if you tried to do this processing locally, it would not be as responsive as you would want. So finally, for this part of the talk, data security. So large data breaches are certainly news nowadays and a concern. Unplugging your company from the internet is certainly a way to handle that, and sometimes necessary depending on what you're doing, but it's not always practical. So we are a very connected society. Autodesk wants to earn your trust. All of those different badges that are up there, those are different certifications that our engineers and our technicians have that are working on our managed cloud services. And there's a link up there, autodesk.com/trust, that you can go to learn more about what we're doing to earn your trust, to keep your trust, to keep your data secure. So professional cloud security means to me physical security. Nobody's going to walk away with your server. Continual monitoring, upgrade, and patching of systems as new threats arrive. And we adhere to worldwide standards for data security. So, I'm very proud to announce that Autodesk has new cloud rendering services for 3ds Max 2016. So the first one I mentioned earlier, our A360 rendering for Max. It is high performance, it is physically based cloud rendering. It's ideal for TV and film pre-visualization. It's great for architectural, industrial product visualization. It produces very quick images from draft to final quality, from small to exceptionally large. It produces images in a variety of formats, including a radiance and daylight analysis. It can create stereo and mono panoramas, turntables, in a variety of formats. I talked about its use in Revit, and one of the advantages and one of the things that I worked hard on to bring it into 3ds Max, the reason it's in Max, is that Max handles high polygon models very well. So if you want to bring in a tree or a shrub or a high poly car, Max can handle that. In Revit, it's not built for polygons. It's built for a representation of a wall or a representation of a wall sweep. It's not built for all the different individual pieces and parts. It's also a database. So if you bring in something that's high poly into Revit, the database explodes, and then if you're using our new collaboration or even just on a local server, you've now got a lot more data that's just taking up space. It's slower for everybody that's working on that model, and it's just not ideal. In Max, it handles polygons just fine. So this isn't a demo, but it kind of shows just how simple it is. You just choose the A360 renderer. There's a few simple settings. You can choose multiple camera views to send at once. So with a single upload, you can send 15 cameras if you want to. You can then change those on the cloud service later. Small images are always free. You can play with the service, see how it works, what it does for you. And if you decide you want a higher resolution image, you can choose that on the cloud. So you can change it to a high quality setting and a larger image, and it'll re-render without another upload. You can also change the type. So if you've got an image that you like and you want to produce a panorama, you can choose that in the cloud, and it creates that image and makes it available for you. And very easy to share and collaborate with clients. It's about being responsive. It's about not having to wait for renders. It's about saving your render farm for the critical things and taking the iterative design up into the cloud. So as an example of some of the cloud advantages, this is a scene from our friends at Blue Marble 3D. I use it as a kind of a test bed for renderers. It's all interior, all indirect illumination. It's very heavy from a polygon standpoint. Over 700 photometric area lights, which is difficult for most renderers. And a big file when you include all the textures and everything, about 250 megabytes. On my little home i7 machine and my broadband internet, only took 1.5 minutes to process the scene and upload it to the cloud. So a small image, so in under 20 minutes, I could have had all of my different cameras rendered, including sending it to the cloud. And even large images, so 4,000 by 3,000, I think is the upper limit, 180 minutes. And again, you could be processing multiple images all at the same time. So lots of advantages to that. If you're doing a mental ray workflow right now, the A360 rendering has a high level of compatibility. So, new for 3ds Max 2016 is our Art Cloud Rendering Service. This is brand new. It's available in Autodesk Labs as a preview. Let me start that. So this looks just like the last video, but it's a seamless, very easy workflow. It uses a brand new rendering engine called ART, which stands for the Autodesk Ray Tracer, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The A360 Cloud Render really isn't made for creating animations. You can't do a path animation with that, but you can do those turntables that I talked about. This actually renders with Max in the cloud, so it's a high level of compatibility. If you're doing deformations and other things that Max is great to do, this works with that. The new ART renderer is CPU only, so there's no special hardware that you need. Physically based, we provide it as a local renderer and a cloud service. And right now, since it's in preview, if you're interested in the cloud, the service is free. We're still working out how to get that polished So we appreciate help if you're willing to give it a try. So it's still in beta, but we are looking for people to give it a try. So that's just one thing that was rendered in that. So in a very short period of time. Right now the system's rather limited, but you get about a 40x increase in speed for generating animations and about a 20x increase in speed for still images. And we'll expand that over time. So this is the Autodesk Ray Tracer, or ART. And these are some images that our engineering team in Gothenburg did, and then also some of the users that were involved with beta testing. And then now that it's been released to labs, so it's that same URL there at the bottom, we're getting images from our users, and the feedback has been really good. Again, it's CPU-based, no special hardware. Fully photometric workflows are great for this, so photometric lights, Autodesk materials, Arc and Design materials, all work very well. It also has a very good active shade workflow, which we'll see in a moment. So this just gives you a little bit of an idea. It skips ahead a little bit, but this is where art really shines if you're doing local. Being able to sit down with the client, change materials, lighting, change viewpoints interactively. And this is the thing that people seem to really appreciate the most, this kind of additional workflow. So we worked hard. We actually added features and optimized code to make the interactive experience better and to try to get everything that you might play with to work well in the renderer. The art renderer works exceptionally well if you're doing image-based lighting, daylights, those kinds of things. So in conclusion, leveraging the cloud means to me being able to expand and also contract as needed, being able to better manage expenses and manage capital and save it for the cool toys instead of rendering. It means being able to be on the cutting edge very quickly, very easily, with low risk. And finally, being able to connect with others and get stuff done together. Thank you very much. Any questions on what I've covered? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming and viewing my presentation. Thank you.